creating some amazing geodes out of just markers and some glitter. So let's get our materials and let's get started.
Before we draw our geodes, let's take a look at some geodes in real life. So a geode is a rock that is a hard outer shell, and then on the inside it has crystals. You can see this geode was cracked open probably with a hammer and a chisel, so it doesn't have the nice smooth flat surface that we're going to be making on our geode. Here's another picture of a part of a geode that shows the inside crystals, and you can see that some of the crystals are one color and some are the other color, and there's different layers even in the outer shell. Here are some rocks that you can see these layers in a little bit more carefully, and we're going to be drawing layers like that. So how does a geode form? A geode starts its life as a hollow bubble inside of a layer of rock. It might be formed by gas bubbles in a volcano or from empty spaces in sedimentary rocks, such as animal burrows or around tree roots. As mineral-rich water seeps through these hollow spots, little bits of the minerals are left behind, forming crystals. These crystals can take on different colors depending on what type of mineral is formed. Crystals can form into layers, and with some polishing, we can see the cut section of a geode looking pretty amazing. So if you cut a geode, you would see layers that look more like this. And this is what we're going to be drawing. And you can see that there are some sparkly layers, there's some darker, there's some lighter, and we're going to be adding in all of that. Here's another one with some different colors. So you'll be able to use really whatever colors you like on yours. And here's even another one. So let's go ahead and get started with our project.
All right, so we're going to begin drawing our geode, and what you're going to need for that is you're going to need a Sharpie, and you're going to need some different colored Crayola markers. These need to be washable markers. And what I did is I chose a color palette of 5 markers. You could choose anywhere from 3 to 5. And I chose analogous colors. That means colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. So you could choose blues, greens like this, or you could choose reds and orange, oranges and yellows, yellows and greens, reds and purples, things that go together and that sit next to each other on the color wheel. You're also going to need a little bit of water and a paintbrush. Your first step on your geode is to make the outline of your geode. You want to have it be pretty big because this is a small paper, so we're going to try to fit it on this paper here. And so you want to make just an oval that has wobbly edges, and it's going to go and cover most of your paper. Geodes are irregular in shape. They're not perfect ovals or circles, so that helps us. Then you're going to set your Sharpie aside, and you're going to choose one of your colors. And basically what you're going to do here is you are going to trace the inside of that line all the way around with one of your markers, and you're going to use the broad side of it. So you're not going to use the point of it because that will give you a very narrow line. You're going to use the broad edge. You're going to try not to leave any white space between that and your Sharpie. Alright, you can see that I was also very careful not to go too much out of the edge of my black Sharpie. So now I'm going to choose another color, and I'm going to go right on the inside of that in the same manner. Alright, once I've done a couple of colors, I might want to leave a little white space. So before I do my next color, I'm going to think about leaving an even amount of white space. And I'm going to make a third stripe, but I'm going to leave that space in between. You do want these to be wiggly, wobbly lines, and you want them all to have sort of the same wiggles and wobbles. So when it goes out here, I want to make sure to go out there, because that wiggly line will make it look more like a geode. Then you're going to keep going, and you're going to alternate some of your different colors. You might add 1 or 2 more lines of Sharpie at some point, and you might have a couple more white spaces. Most of it will be colored though. Alright, once you're finished, you are are going to take that water that we were talking about, and you are going to use a little bit of water on here to sort of blend these colors together. Your idea would be to keep the water from going out here, because you don't want the colors to go outside of the geode, but you do want them all to mix a bit within the geode. So just lightly go over them. You need to get them wet for a moment, and then they'll start to blend. So just lightly go around the edge, and then once it's wet, go around again with your paintbrush, which will still be a little wet, and you'll be able to see those colors start to blend a little. It's not going to be too much, it's just going to be enough to make it a little more interesting. Once you've gotten the whole thing slightly wet, you don't want to make it too wet, but I would go over it a second time because now those colors are going to be even more blendable. So just gently, with a not too wet brush, spread around the water that you already have there. Okay, for our final step, we get to do something fun. We get to use some glitter. And there's a couple of different ways you can do this. This is just loose glitter, which we want to use only a little bit of because it's a huge mess. And these are glitter glues. So I would suggest using a color that kind of goes along with your geode. If you've got a blue geode, don't use red glitter. But you can use silver and gold, and you can use a color that coincides with what you've done on your geode. So you are gonna repeat those same lines. I'm gonna do it in this section of white here, and I'm just gonna repeat it with my glitter glue. I'm gonna go around, I'm gonna make a wobbly line. It doesn't need to be a ton, it's just meant to add a little shine. And if you put too much on, it will never dry. So be careful not to put too much on. If it's a wider space, you might want to go back just with your finger and sort of spread it out a little bit. So I would suggest doing maybe 2 of your rings, and then fill in that center. And in that center, you might want to use glitter glue and then put the loose glue on top of it.